Hey everybody, welcome back to Panther with Purpose. I am your host, the one and only Donna Janel, where we strive to bring back the responsibility, nobility, and beauty back into parenting. As you know, parents are the bows and our children are arrows, and they will land wherever we send them. It may not be today, newsflash, it may not be tomorrow, and definitely it may not even be in 5 years, y'all. We just don't know what time they will land, but eventually they will land wherever we aim them. As long as, here's the thing, as long as we clothe them with the right things and we give them the tools to be successful, whatever success looks like in their life. Because honestly, if we don't clothe our children with the proper things, the world will dress them with anything. And we can see it now, what's going on in the world of how our children are being dressed with all types of things, right? So again, you know, our job here is have engaging conversations. We talk about what they don't want to talk about, right? So this week we are still talking and focusing on dads, all things dads, right? The last couple of weeks we talked about the role of a dad, the significance of a dad, and how important it really is for dads to be in their children's life, to be active, right? Last week we talked about, listen, I'm a single mom out here, but I'm not a father. So we talked about last week about like not telling mothers Happy Father's Day and all that crazy junk that's out here. We may be doing a lot of roles, but we ain't no fathers. I'm telling you, I've been doing this thing for over parenting for 25 years, y'all. 25, heck, I've been parenting for 25 years. Don't look like it, I know. But I've been doing this single parenting thing for about 15 years, and I ain't nobody father. And I know the importance of having an active father in their life. So tonight we talking again about that the rest of the month. Like we got another week, we're going to be talking about fathers. But every guest on this month has been a father, or we have talked about the role of a father. So this week we have Drew on the show.
How you doing?
Hello, welcome to the show. And we're just going to get into it, y'all. We're just going to talk about the importance of a father. I'm trying to think, do I have anything for y'all this week about my kids? What my kids do? Oh, it's been quiet they've been quiet. They've been very quiet. Strange. Even the one that touched my inner gangster, y'all. She been real quiet. The only thing we working on is my daughter, you know, she's going in the Marines. She's leaving in July. So we just been working on getting her put together, you know, working out with her, food prep and things like that, and getting her mind together as she go into Marines. One, definitely, being a female, going into one of the hardest boot camps there is, right? 13 weeks boot camp.
Absolutely, it's 13 weeks.
Yeah, so she's setting out to leave in July 22nd.
And she going during the hottest time.
Yeah.
On top of that, Paris Island is miserable during them months.
Oh man, don't tell me that, because I'm already trying to.
I mean, it's good training. She can be all right. She'll survive.
Right?
She can drink plenty of water. You see, I'm still here. I survived it.
You did Paris Island?
I sure did.
Yo, my God.
I made it. I'm alive and well. You know what I mean? Still ticking.
You're a dude though.
That don't matter.
Listen, she's been on the program, the police program. So she's been doing this for already a year. They've been having her get stuff ready. But I think the craziest thing, the worst thing I did was the day of her, I think it was the day of her graduation from high school, because she graduated from military academy. I watched a YouTube of Paris Island boot camp. Yeah. I was like, I changed my mind. Never mind. You're not doing that to my baby girl.
But listen, she gonna learn a lot.
She was laying, crawling in the mud, and people laying on her back. What's wrong?
That's good
training. Yo, I was like, at that point, I was like, never mind, I forget. I changed my mind. But she's so adamant, and she's so strong. And, you know, this is the daughter where my sister and her husband passed away. So I adopted her and her sister from the situation. Yeah. So I've been raising them for 10 years now. So she's already been through life and craziness without having two parents. So, like, she's like ready to go. A lot of people wanted her to go in the Air Force or
I mean, so look, the Air Force as far as quality of life, right? Like if your goal is quality of life and just getting military under your belt and then using it as a stepping stool, if that's your goal, then I mean, I agree that the Air Force is a better deal. But nobody joins the Air Force. I mean, nobody joins the Marine Corps because for the same reasons that you joined. Like nobody's like, you know, I really want some good quality of life. Let me join the Marine Corps. Nah. That's not the way it works.
Nah, that's what she said.
You join the Marine Corps for two things: to prove something to yourself, or to prove something to other people. And I really believe that both of them are intertwined for real. Yeah. Right? Because nobody looks at the Marine Corps and says, like, look, this is the hardest one. 13 weeks. Right. First to fight. This is the best decision. Nobody looks at it like that and is like, oh, nah. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's Mount Everest of military for the access of me. So can I climb it? It's more like that. Yeah. Can I do it?
That's what it is. She's proving it to herself because she was like, no offense to the other forces or whatever, but the Air Force is too bougie for me. Like she's just like, I'm trying to get deep down in there. I'm like, yo, for real.
But she already got the right attitude. Yeah. Right? Like she wanted. And that's the real thing. Just make sure, tell her be wise. She might even watch this, right? Be wise, be prepared, be quick. They want speed, volume, and intensity. Yeah. Do everything fast, do everything loud, and be intense. Yeah. And then also just be prepared that it's gonna be a transformation. Like you gotta be prepared for that too, Mom.
I know, that's the part. That part right there.
But you're gonna be proud of her. Like I remember, I think back looking at my mom watching me, she was proud. Yeah. Right? Like she like gleaming, right? And nobody wanted me to go. And I joined in 2006. So that was when the Iraq war was popping,
I was going to say that was.
So people were like, nah. And then also the other part of it being a black man, like I had a lot of influence that was like, nah, don't do that. But so I needed two things. I needed the structure, right? And also the other part is I needed to know where I stood, whether I could do it or not. Yeah. I needed, like, it was more like I needed to be able to benchmark myself amongst men. Like, so, and then it's going to be a good transition so I grew up without my pops. Okay. Right? So as a result of that, being in the house, growing up with my mom, my two sisters, and I definitely had influences of like, so at one, my mom was married for like 3 years, so I had the influence of my step-pops. I had a significant influence from my Uncle Terry. Okay. And I also had a bunch of male cousins, my brother. Like I would go spend the summers with my brother. So I had male influence, but not in-house, right? So there was no real refuge for my like everyday life. I just had vacations to a dude, right? If that makes sense. Yeah. So my structure, my foundation was based on all of the teachings of my mom. So I didn't really know, and I had no way of knowing where I fell amongst men. Right. So the Marine Corps did something for me in particular that I really needed to do. Like it helped me benchmark myself, where I could see like now, all right. So now not only am I in the Marine Corps, but I'm excelling in this world. So now I know I'm like, okay, so I could do a little bit. So the Marine Corps helped me build my confidence as a man, right? Wow. The Marine Corps helped fill in the gaps where I lack structure, right? And I'm gonna tell, so I love my mom. I adore my mother, right? I think she did a great job. But I also simultaneously understand that she did the best she could with what she had. Absolutely, right? Yeah. Fathers are very important, and especially for boys, right? So the Marine Corps almost fathered me in a sense. Wow, right? Yeah. And filled in those gaps where I had, like, so it was like it was a crash course in what I needed to do to be able to be a protector, right? What I needed to do to be able to stand on honor and conduct myself in a manner where it's like, all right, I got to be socially responsible, even though we really wasn't, because it's like being a college student. You go to class, you follow the rules, and you go home. Right. But I also was still learning because I had a lot of examples. But fast forward, there's a lot of things I took from it. So when I tell you she going to be all right, she going to be all right. It's going to be a transformation. It's going to be intense. You're going to see a different person, right? Yeah. And then depending on where her path takes her, she gonna go through some emotional changes and she gonna have some battles that she gonna have to deal with, but it's all growth, right? Yeah. And in the end, the foundation that you gave her, and then also subsequently the support that you're gonna need to give her, because that's what made the difference for me getting out, right? Going through PTSD and the transition of coming back to Drew from Staff Sergeant Nelson, right? That transition had to occur, and it was based on my support system. So just support her, be there, love her. Right? Whatever she need. But she gonna be good. Yeah. I keep telling myself that. And the Marine Corps is gonna kind of dad her. Right? Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. It's gonna be intense. And it's gonna stress you out, and it's gonna stress her out too. Right. But ain't that what dads do? Right. Come to think about it, I never even looked at it as a dad point of view. And I knew she definitely wanted to go in to prove, I mean, she's already been through so many different things in life and challenges. Her dad died when she was 6, her mom at 8. Right. So she's already been through so much, and she just felt like she life hit her. Right. So she's like, I'm going in, and this is what I want to do. And I'm like, oh no, go to the Air Force, girl. Right. She's like, no. And so she's going in for engineering. She's able to go in for engineering. That's awesome. So she can be at 13. Right now she at 1300, and then when she get into the actual MCT, and she finishes that, she'll get her specific where she gonna be specifically at, so she got an occupational field right now. And as parents, like you try to figure out like the best path for your kids, like the path that they want, not your path. Like because it ain't never gonna be what you want. In our mind as parents, we like this is what we want our kids to do. Like I'm a nurse, so I'm like, you got to get in the medical field or something like that. You got to be a lawyer, whatever. And she's just like, nah, that's not for me. I'm like, okay. And
earlier in my parenting, with my 25-year-old, like I micromanaged her. I parented her to a point where I wanted her to do what I wanted her to do. But the other 3 younger ones, like, taught me very quickly, like, you got to let kids be who they want to be. Yep. Your job is to help them, to motivate them and structure them and stuff. Like, not your job ain't for them to be you and do exactly what you say. You don't even own these kids.
That's a fact.
So
they rentals, and not even a rental. It's more so like, this is a bad word, but it's the first thing that I can think of that applies. It's like a task, right? Like your job is to prepare them. Mm-hmm. That's it. You can't live your life for them.
You can't live it.
You can't live your life vicariously through them.
Nope. So but a lot of people try to do that, and I learned pretty quickly that you can't do that.
Yeah.
I was one of them micromanaged moms, like, yo, and then I was like, this ain't working out. I'm getting frustrated because y'all ain't listening to me.
Right.
You ain't doing what I said. But the Marine, I never looked at it as being a father for her though. But that's pretty cool because even the whole time that her and her sister is at the military academy, they've been there. So she's staff sergeant right now. So when she goes in, she actually go in a different rank.
Yeah, she can be a contract PFC.
Yeah, yep. So it's a little different. But I like that perspective you just said, that that's going to help father her too. Because that's what she desperately needs. Because again, I'm not a father.
Right.
And I don't really have the male figures in her life that I would like to be able to kind of father her. Mm-hmm. Or I'm not going to say I don't have them in her life. I just haven't allowed that, to happen. I didn't cultivate certain relationships so that she can have that male figure in her life. And that's why I tell moms, first of all, being a single mom is not a flex. It is not a flex. And it's so important for fathers to be in their children's life, or even that male figure to be in their children's life. So let's talk about the important role. Well, let's talk about the role of a father, right? And then the importance for it to be in the child's life, the family, and community.
Yeah. All right. So, I don't know. I got 2 analogies. The first one is going to be like a house, right? So I imagine a house, like the role of the father is the wood, right? The foundation.
Okay. Yeah.
And the structure part of it. Mm-hmm. And then the mom brings in, when the mom come in, now you got the walls. Now the house is getting character, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that the fatherly role lies within the structure and the guidance and which comes to the next analogy where I want to talk about. So it's like when I started growing plants, I learned the value of wind to a plant. Okay. What happens is when it blows in the wind, as it's blowing, it's breaking, right?
Yeah.
The base of the plant, whatever it is, it's moving and it's breaking. And then it grows back more calloused and strong, right? The concept, what don't kill you, make you stronger, it's applicable to people and plants.
Okay.
Right? So I think that a dad, our role is to, in addition to that structure, by preparing children for the real world, by giving them that, like that smack of dose of reality, if you will, right? So, again, referencing back to my mom, my sisters, I love y'all. Y'all do an amazing job. Right. But I also understand simultaneously, because of how your delivery might come more, so are you going to take into account a lot more of the emotional part than I'm going to take into account. So when your delivery is going to be based on, is this emotionally delivered in the right way? And is it going to be perfected for my child? Right. Right. And that's amazing. Right. Yeah. But it's also not what the world is going to do for your child. Right. So the dad is going to come with a perspective where there's going to be a smack of reality. Right. And I'm not necessarily going to emotionally form it to be fit for you, but instead I'm going to give it to where it's going to make you fit for the world.
Wow.
Right. So I think that in the role of parenting, you can consider a dad like the wind. Right. I'm going to put that pressure on you. Right. Because that's my job. And from that pressure, which the Marine Corps is going to do from her, that child going to learn confidence. Right. They're going to learn discipline. They're going to be structured. And they're going to have a more, provided that the mom is there and impactful, instead of if they're fighting, then now it's an adverse effect. Right. But if y'all could work together in harmony, whether it be you're in a 2-parent household or you're in a co-parent relationship, both of them roles are essential. Because if you just got the dad, then you got a house and it's there, but there ain't no walls and there ain't no character. Right. And that's the real truth. Yeah. Because I don't know how to build out walls and all of that. That's not my role. The Most High ain't put me in that. Right. But what I do know how to do is get that foundation going and get that structure going, right? And it comes intuitively to me. my children respond differently to me than they respond to their mom.
Yeah.
And I think the analysis is because of that, because mothers, your role is to make sure that it's packaged in the manner that it's supposed to be delivered and tailored for your child. Sense of identity, sense of processing emotion, all of that is very important. It's imperative for a child.
Right.
So y'all's role is equally as important, right? But if you have all of this and you don't have the structure, then you really got, like, you ever seen them little joints where you roll by and they got the air in them and they just blow all around?
Yeah.
Like you got something there and it's good and it's whole and you can see it, but it don't got the structure. It's just blowing all over the place.
It's trying, but it can't really produce what it needs to produce.
Because it don't have that essential piece that it need. Wow. So I joined the Marine Corps to get that essential piece so I can now stand up like the structure I needed to be. I had all of the right parts. I had all of the walls and everything was in there nice and designed. Again, my mom did an excellent job. But what she couldn't do was she couldn't apply that life pressure to me, right? And she couldn't separate her love the way she loved from me in a manner that I needed it so that way I could receive stuff in the manner that I needed to survive in the world, right? Yeah. And she just couldn't do it. Like it ain't okay,
like
because everybody play their own essential role. Again, the Most High knew what he was doing when he implemented that balance. Man. So I think that's the role of fathers.
Yo, that is so true because like I was telling C's and other people, like I seen a TikTok, right, and it's like it was like all these TikToks on there, and they were parents, like the mom was telling the child, even down to a toddler, right? The mom was like, lay down, do this and do that. And the kid's just laughing at her like ain't nothing. The dad walking around, he ain't had to raise his voice or nothing. He just walking and said, what does your mother say? And the kids lay down from toddler all the way up to like 13, whatever the situation was. It was them. I said, yo, like literally you straighten up when you know that there's a man there, like their power and their authority, and not in a way that, oh, this person's going to hurt me, but you know that this person is here to love me, protect me, and all that.
And in return, your response is, I want to be better. I want to function better. I want to, like, that presence, like you said, that authority, it keeps you like within like boundaries, like due bounds, but to be able to be upright, not to be confused with like boundaries of keeping you closed in, because that's backwards, right? And when I was young Drewski and I didn't really understand, right, I was more of I need to keep you in this, right? Like I need to keep you boxed in boundaries because I had intuition but not understanding, right? So now fast forward, like you said, you've been through the ringer. Right? I done been through a couple of ringers. Right? So now you get through the ringers and then now I learn, like now it's like my role is still there. Like I'm supposed to be there as those margins of the boundaries, but it needs to be more like guidance than like a encasing. Right? I can't box you in. I just gotta guide you. Yeah.
I think that is so important because when even when you talk to like fathers or even like you have that father, right? That's that super disciplinary, but more of a military structure where there is no attachment. There's no like even the emotional piece is like not even there. It's more like this is what I said do. This is what you're going to do. There's no relationship there.
That was me when I was on active duty parenting. So my oldest baby, now at this point, I've been out 9 years. Okay. She's 13. But her initial experience of me was that
dictatorship parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So at this point when Amani was born, so I joined the Marine Corps in 2006. Amani was born in 2011. So at this point, I've been in 5 years. I'm a sergeant. Yeah. I got people under me. Okay. Right? Like I'm invested. I'm locked in. Right? And then boom, now I got a baby. Right? And then by the time she's old enough to where she could respond, now I'm a staff sergeant. I got sergeants that work for me. Right. I'm institutionalized.
Right. Got you. Right? There you go. Yeah.
So you supposed to take off your uniform at the door of the house, right? And then go into your house as the man.
Right.
That's the philosophy that you're supposed to do. Tell that damn amygdala that, because it don't understand, right? Because emotions and trauma maintains in there, right? So even though I tried the best I could to shed the military part when I came home, it's kind of hard to be Staff Sergeant Nelson from 6 a.m. until 5 p.m. And then get home at 5:30 and then now I'm just Drew. Yeah. And I ain't even in the military. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then because I didn't have the emotional skills, right? So I grew up in trauma, unfortunately, right? So I didn't really get to ascend through Maslow's until I was able to heal a little bit, right? So I didn't learn how to have any emotions other than excited and anger.
Wow. Right? Yeah. I can say, yeah.
So I was a grown man figuring out this large scale of emotions, like legitimately grown man, like in my 30s, right? Because you don't even have the capacity to do that while you're on active duty either, because your mission is different, right? You're in the military, your goal is not to be emotionally whole right now. As a matter of fact, it could be argued that an emotionally whole person on active duty is going to struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you got all of your attention pulled in a whole bunch of different ways where you really need to be laser focused.
Right.
So it's competing interests. So not making excuses because you're still accountable for it. But yeah, I was that dictator dad. I was.
Yeah. And I think sometimes what we see is like a lot of times is one, either their father was a dictator dad. Like you say, if a person didn't go into the military, but honestly, in this world, it seemed like you in the military, you fighting a war out here. Like a lot of our brothers are out here fighting a war. And the same way you just said that in the military, right, you staff sergeant Nelson, you had to come home and try to take that hat off. I feel like a lot of men, from what I've seen and growing up in the state of Chester, like they out fighting the war outside and then try to come home and try to take that off. So that the way you just broke that down just gave me a little bit more understanding, a different perspective of why a lot of men aren't emotionally involved in their children or relationally, more of a dictatorship, because it's like I done fought the world and it's hard for me to put, especially if I didn't know this and didn't see this before.
So let me add a little bit more clarity to that too, because now that you said that, that reminded me of a conversation I had with their mother. So fast forward, in addition to me learning this range of emotions, now I got to go backtrack, and I'm like, damn, bro, you fucked that up. Oh, I'm sorry. You messed that up. You messed that up. So now I got to go take accountability. So part of that process of taking accountability, one of the things I came to the understanding was like trying to understand, well, why? What was the issue with me? Why is it that I was such a dictator, right? Why? Because you could label it and be like, oh, it's this, right? But everything got a reason.
Everything has a root.
So what it came to was that my life was so chaotic outside of the walls. I tried to create this peaceful, serene space in the home, but I was willing to do it by any means necessary. That's a little backwards, young boy thinking, right? But so that ended up being a why by it. So like our natural thing, we want to have our resolve, we want to have our calm, we want to find balance, right? And so my lifestyle depicts that I'm taking things by force, if you will, right? Because the Marine Corps is aggressive culture, right? Like I didn't ask my Marines to do stuff. It wasn't, hey, do you guys mind if, right? It was like, hey, go get that thing and get it over there, quick, right? It was very autocratic. So that's a mindset,
right?
And again, it's not easy to just turn it off, right? So that was the foundation of how I started. But then, like you said, you learn real quick that this don't work, right? Because our kids are humans.
Absolutely.
Right? So now you got to realize that, like, you got to figure out, all right, how can I create this space that I need for balance? Because this world is chaotic, and I do need to understand that there's two different worlds, right? So what can I do as a father? What can I do as a man to get that space where it's like, all right, I can get into the mental space of being a parent, and I can check it, but I also got to be aware of it to happen in order to do it. So I think what would have helped is, or what could help in general, that's why spouses are important too, right? Like you got to have a solid spouse that can know you and see you and say like, hey, listen, like you're not communicating well, or you're not progressing in this area where you should, like this where you lacking at, like call you on it, be that mirror. So now I can understand it's a problem, because if you don't have somebody that can explain it to you or show you like this problem is happening, then it's real easy to think that, oh, it ain't a problem, because if you results based, because what's wrong with it, right? It's working, it's doing it. So the way to get out of that, I think, is two things, right? So one, we just need to be made aware of it. And then two, like what I learned is like take your time out, take that time before you go in to go somewhere to decompress, and then refocus on what your goal is. So if your goal is create a peaceful, safe space, then put that in the front of your mind. Pray for that before you walk in the house. Absolutely. So that's what your focus is. But I ain't understand all of that before. Right. But again, why dads are important, because now I could walk this path, and then now I could communicate that to my children as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
I think that is so true. I had a gentleman on here, like I think last year or whatever, and he was talking about really decompressing before you go in the house. You know how important it is, because again you have so much weight on you, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be able to parent effectively. Like we don't, I don't believe in parenting, mother and father, just titles. These are lifestyles. This is what we live, right?
Right.
So how do we do it effectively? Because a lot of times what we see now is that because we didn't heal our wounds, we're now bleeding over our children, right? So now we're having to go back to heal ourselves, so then therefore we don't have it transfer to our children, and it becomes transgenerational now,
right.
versus just not doing it just because my mama did it, my daddy did it, my sister did it, my aunt did it, and we don't even know why they all did it. They don't know why they did it, and not just accepting. I think the world that we live in now with our children, though, they're not accepting stuff like we did back in the day.
Right, they question everything because they have more information available to them.
Yeah,
right. We grew up in silos almost. Like all of our environments was controlled all the way down to TV, right? Like if you remember in the 90s or early 90s when Congress passed a law to where they no longer regulated what could be put in music and all of that, right? That's when it changed. Yeah. And that's the same time as the internet boom and start popping. So there was a shift. But you remember the early 90s and before,
yeah,
the
we
grew up in silos.
The sitcoms that was on, they were so clean.
It sure was.
It was like everybody, the Huxtables and stuff like that. A lot, even growing up, they were just solid families that you could kind of look up to, even though you knew this wasn't your family, but this is what you could hope your family could be. So what do I need to do to produce this type of family? Then the shift came, and it's like free fall. Listen, you can live how you want to live. I live how I want. It's my business.
Right.
And that's what kind of literally changed the trajectory of parenting, really, too.
Absolutely.
And then I was talking to my friend. He was talking about today because we were talking about discipline, right? And I was telling him what we're talking about, the show tonight, and we were talking about because what happened was somebody stole packages off his apartment on the step. Like, kids, they go around, not even just kids though, adults, so they stealing packages. And he was just basically saying that the kids need to get butt kicking, and it's these parents. And I was like, listen, we had a conversation like this on Bible study last night about parenting, because I believe that if we don't give our parents the tools to be able to parent properly, we're doing a disservice to our community.
For sure.
Because the first thing that happens to our kids is the parents' fault, right?
Right.
Which, we're raising our kids. Like, we should. But at the same time, if the parents grew up, you don't know better. If you haven't seen better, you won't do better. If you don't know better, you can't do better, right? So if we don't get into, I was like, yeah, the parents, those kids is definitely a result of the parenting, but the parenting is probably a result of their parenting and their parenting. So I understand that we got to get on our parents, but can we help the parents? Can we show the parents how to actually parent properly? Because if you don't know, you don't know. You think it's normal for you to be smacking your son in the back of the head.
That was me.
Cursing your son out.
That was me. Spankings was very normal to me. Yeah. Right? Like this was a decision I made where I'm like, all right, let me get out of this spanking thing. My last time I got it, the last time my mother put her hands on me, right, I was 15. So to put it in perspective, this normalizing all across my whole family. Yeah. I have one cousin, that I remember from even when we was younger, has always consistently like, nah, spankings are trash. That's like slave mentality. And when I heard him saying that, I'm like, yo, you crazy.
You're crazy, yeah. Right?
Nah, he's not crazy.
No, nah.
He's not crazy at all. Because how you going to teach your child not to be violent by using violence?
By using violence. You know what? When I started doing like parenting, and I didn't, it's a two things to this situation I think about now that I've been in there for a minute. When I first started parenting, I never wanted to be like my parents because I was mishandled. I was fumbled. So with abuse and things like that. So the way that I looked at it is that I wasn't going to hurt my children. And I felt like physical was going to hurt them. So I figured out a way to parent where I didn't have to physically discipline them, like punishment and things like that. And that worked. It really did. Until these last three right here. The first one it worked for, and the other ones it worked for until they became teenagers. See, that's the thing. So then I start saying, well, there's such a thin line between what you should do and what you shouldn't do, because I felt like I did so much for them, and their their discipline was me, maybe taking something away. And I felt like when it was like 14 and 15, I'm like, man, I should have whooped your tail, man. Cause I feel like this stuff is coming back to me. But actually, I'm still thinking about it because now that the one she's 18, I didn't have to beat her. I didn't do any of those things, but she turned out to be a well-rounded child. But she used to say to me, though, won't you just beat me? I was like, what? Because her mom and her dad, my sister, this is what we grew up as, right? So when my sister was alive, her discipline was spanking her kids. So when I got her at 8, she did something wrong. She immediately thought I was supposed to whoop her. I was like, no, we don't do that around here. We don't do that. But it took a long time for her to even get that out of her mindset or whatever. So sometimes we think that, so I was telling him, I was like, there's a line between abuse and discipline. And I think the problem is because a lot of parents are emotionally unstable, that it goes over to the abuse side, quick. And then you're very quick. And then you're left held in the bag like, well, now I'm in jail because I hurt my kid, this, that, and the other, and the state taken away. But it's because you crossed that line. So I was telling him, I was like, so one of the things that I tell parents when I coach parents is like, don't do it while you're angry, while you're upset. Don't even have the conversation while you're upset and angry because, when you're angry, stuff come out, say stuff, you be calling people. I was so angry with my kids one day. Again, this is where I realized I don't own my kids. They teenagers, 16 to 18. And I kept telling them to clean the kitchen. Don't leave this there. Don't do this there. I'm like, that's all I ask you to do is just clean up after yourself. They didn't clean up after themselves. And I came to the house. I was driving 4 hours from school one day. And I was just so emotionally wrapped myself that when I came in and I saw them didn't do what I said, I was so upset. I started screaming and yelling at them, throwing pots and pans on the floor. Like I had an adult temper tantrum at 43 years old. It was so much in me. But what I did was I caught myself because I start feeling like my mom. I start feeling like seeing things that I saw before. So because words have power. So instead of telling my son, you lazy, I was like, you got lazy tendencies, and I don't like these lazy tendencies. Like, instead of telling him something that he's not, like, you're not lazy. You just choose the wrong path right now. You're making the wrong choice. So you have lazy tendencies. And I went upstairs in my room, and I cried out to God because I never wanted to be that angry parent and everything. So I went upstairs, I cried to God, and I came back down, and I apologized to my kids. My kids told me, there's no need for apology. You was upset. You had the right to be upset. And I said, I did have the right to be upset. However, how displayed that anger was wrong.
That's because right. It was your actions that you apologizing for, not your emotion.
Yeah, I was like, because if that's teaching you guys that you could behave that way.
Right.
That's not appropriate. That's not acceptable. So we have to be able to control our emotions, be able to get our point across without showing that type of anger. So although you guys forgave me for whatever you forgive me for, but I'm apologizing to you as a mom that was out of order. Right. And a lot of parents, we don't take that responsibility. I said what I said. I did what I did.
Right. That's horrible.
and you better listen. So I think as a father in the house, like that whole structure would be different. And I'm not shortchanging single parenting again, because listen, I've been doing it. Listen, y'all, my kids are doing well. However, I do understand the importance of the authority in the house. Because if I got to tell my kids something 5 times, and then you come in there and tell them 1 time, like I'd rather you come to them 1 time, but then let me stick to the emotional portion of it, how to do certain things, like you said, put these walls up, dress these curtains and stuff, and you handle the tough stuff.
Making it a house.
Yeah.
Right. Well-rounded it.
Yeah. Right. I think that is so important. And we just, in the community, we see a lot of children, quote unquote, acting out of order. And we wonder why they're acting out of order. And the first thing they always say is, what does a household look like?
Right. Because they want to find out if the father is present. That's the trick way.
Yeah. So what do we do? What do we say? Like, how do we get men to understand their importance, despite of however their relationship is with the mother? Because I hear when I coach men, and I tell them, listen, use the course. The women use court system against you, use them against them. Because a lot of guys who I talk to say, well, she won't let me do this, or she won't let me do that.
I always say that. Go to the court. Because no judge will deny you access to your child, which means that no woman can.
Exactly. Right. So, but a lot of men don't do that. I don't know why.
I think it's messaging. right? So in the same way that the messaging is what was used against us to break us apart as families, right? Because that's what it came down to, was messaging, right? This concept of an independent black woman, right? That was created, and it wasn't internal. We didn't create that. We was taught that.
Right, absolutely.
And the messaging there where it's like, all right, I don't need a man and I don't need my father, right? Because of the absence. Now this came as a result of the absence, right? But just in the same manner that messaging taught a generation of people that they didn't matter in their role, we got to reverse the messaging. And it's happening now. Like I'm seeing it now, right? Like I think the pendulum is swinging. Yeah. Now people are starting to see like, all right, we've been on this no dad kick for like 20 something years, and now they're like, all right, it's not working.
It's not working.
So let's. I think it's the messaging. We got how we communicate. So like you're doing right now, like when we talking about the importance of dads, right? We need to have that conversation on larger scales. It's part of that. As a matter of fact, this Saturday it's happening at Harris. Dr. O.
Oh yeah.
You know Dr. O? So he approached me. I just met Dr. O through a brother, Tom Outlaw. And they approached me about doing a parenting workshop, and the concept is amazing, right? So it's just a group of fathers who are active and involved, looking to create basically like a support group and a network of passing on information and then growing it by inviting people.
Wow.
You know? So I think that a lot of men, especially black men, don't have the social spaces like women have to where y'all can communicate and ask questions and learn about asking the details, right? Like I'm sure if you had your mom and your aunties around, you've been in that social setting, having them conversations and them communications from way back as a young age.
Right.
And I can assure you that them social settings don't happen with dudes. And the very few times that they do happen, and when I mean very few times that they do happen, it's focused on very useless stuff, to put it simple. Right. Like nothing, like there's not an exchange of valuable information. It's more like junk talking. Which that's cool and it serves its purpose, right? If you're trying to toughen somebody up, and that's important for that part of it. Right. But that part of where we sharing resources and communicating so that people his age can understand and learn that as a man, it's okay for you to be able to communicate as well as protect. Right. You know what I mean? Both can be true. That could be changed through messaging, but then also to them social groups. So I like what Dr. O is doing, building out this social group, because then that's going to start teaching a group of people, and then each one could teach one. Absolutely. And then we could change it, because we've been miseducated, right? And we've been shut out of resources and things to make us successful. And then on top of that, our people have been systemically attacked to make us politically weak and economically weak. Right. Right. So in spite of all of that, we still here, and now we got to do the best. And history has showed us that when we have been most successful is when we did it on our own, within our own, right? Absolutely. So I think that this thing that Dr. O is doing is dope, because now that this is where now we creating solutions internally, right? But while also building out systems and structures that could be perpetual. Because now every dude that comes and attends to that meeting now has a concept of what they need to do, and they can take that same concept and do it elsewhere. Absolutely. And then it can just grow exponentially.
I think that's awesome, because like you said, like there's not spaces like that.
Right, it's not.
It really isn't. The space that we talk about, honestly, when we talk about black men, it's always aggressive, negative, and it's sad. Even when it comes to parenting, we talk about the lack of, you know, instead of how do we help, or how do we bring them to understand that we're creating a safe space for men, because, you know, no men don't want to appear weak, right? Right. But showing them that that's not even a weakness if you parenting properly, if you're taking care of your emotional needs, your physical needs, that's not a weakness, that's a strength.
It's not. But we taught that showing emotion is weak. So again, it goes back to the messaging, right? Because really the true understanding is that if you could show your emotion and manage it, right? That's the key. Managing your emotion takes far more strength than responding with aggression. I promise you from real life experience. This is hard. It's easy to yell and fight. That's simple. It comes almost naturally, right? But containing myself through that emotion is still thinking and still making conscious decisions that are impactful positively and that are constructive, as opposed to destructive behavior because I'm angry, right? maintaining that through my emotions is hard.
Yeah, I just thought about something.
That's strength.
That's strength right there.
Yeah.
I just thought about something when we talked about like the emotion. I think about because we look back in slavery days, right?
Yeah.
And we look when you the way that slavery is depicted is that the master tried to weaken the man, right? Humiliated him in front of demasculated him in front of women, and then had the women lose respect for that man because they weren't able to protect for that family.
Right.
So then that's when the woman began to have more of a voice. Because of that. And I just thought about like, wow.
And it's a significant shift in the balance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I just thought about that. I mean, like how, like when we think about how did this happen? Where did it come from? Because even when we look like way deep back in the days, like the men had like the powerful position in the family. Yeah. But then slavery came around and then they got domestic,
So there was a book that started selling by a gentleman, if you can call him that, by a damn demon. By the name of Willie Lynch. Right. You familiar? So that Willie Lynch went across the South selling his books and methods and techniques for profit on how to break a slave for generations. Right. And a lot of the practices that you just spoke of where they would demasculate the man in front of everybody, the biggest one, right? And the things that they did, they didn't even have boundaries. Like it was just bad. They would rape them and would do whatever, right? But they fully understood that they would throw off the balance because it's like, so what God put together, let no man tear apart, right? So the Most High understood the importance of the balance of family.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
So then now during the 1800s, that time was wicked. Like it was like the wild, wild west for everything, right? So social scientists at the time who was racist white males started putting out media that they were calling science, right?
Yeah.
With these ideologies that were very racial, right? So, but it was founded in science, right? So if you observe the human mind enough, then you can start seeing that individually we are very unpredictable, right? What you might do in this time, in this moment, nobody would know. What I might do in this time, in this moment, nobody would ever know. But if you look at your life overall and you look at my life overall and the collective of everybody else's lives overall, we're very, very, very predictable.
Right.
We're only unpredictable individually in the moment. But overall, as a masses, we're very predictable. And because we're very predictable, they studied it and they understood on how to hack our brains. And more specifically, how to throw off that balance that God created. Right. So, like you say, if you can convince a person who was designed to be with two, right, to function together, right, like because humans are social, it's in our core, it's in our DNA, right. That's why to torture somebody, you put them in solitary, because what you're doing is you're going against your core structure. Right. That's intentional. It's psychological.
It messes with your psyche. Yeah.
We're designed by God to be social. Right? That's why you hurt us, you harm us by keeping us apart. Right? So convince a person who's designed to be with somebody that they don't need their partner. Bingo. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Right? They take that concept and then they do all kind of manipulative things that have that same foundational characteristic that it's gonna all intended to break them apart. Right? So if I can make the man not a provider, then he loses value. If I can convince the woman that she don't need him, he further loses value.
Absolutely.
And then so now you got a divided unit, right? And now I can control the kids while they fighting. And I can raise them up in the way that I want them to be. Right. And then because they never saw a foundation of what this unit is supposed to look like, how do they even aspire to it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
So they took this science and manipulated it and taught it to slave owners and implemented it on us live in real time. And the expected effects of it are playing out right now today. Right. But there was an unintended consequence. I believe our people were so influential across the globe, right? Because of our influence on how we are in the United States, it has spilled over into the society that they didn't intend it. So now you're seeing the same things that was implemented to break us is now spreading like cancer and it's destroying the society, right? So now they started out intentionally breaking black families for political gain, right? And now American families are broken for political gain.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And economic gain.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said that how it's playing across the globe because I've been watching. I'm a history buff, so I watch a lot of documentaries, and I watch about the Holocaust. Right, I watched about the Holocaust, but I watched it more about the Holocaust versus Hitler, like not Hitler growing up. Right, so I was watching it, and the series on Netflix, a new series, like 6 episodes. My friend had me started watching it, and it talks about how he grew up and how he was able to dominate his power. Right. But then it also talks about, which I didn't know, which kind of got to me, is that a lot of his stuff he took from Jim Crow. Like the way that Americans was treating Americans.
Right. He stole it. He
stole it and then started treating everybody else the same. And then that's something that people don't talk about though. Right. They don't talk about the damage that what was done in slavery has went across the world, and people began to treat everybody a certain way. Right. And I thought that was very intriguing to me because I was like, "What, Jim Crow? Wait a minute, how Jim get in here?"
I didn't even know that, but it makes sense. I mean, because America does a great job at messaging, right? That's what it all come down to. That was another one of Hitler's greatest successes, right? That he was able to organize and unite via messaging, right? He put everybody in a uniform with a united identity, and more specifically, he united them based off of what he knew. Like they all collectively had issues with this one group of people, so now let me rally these folks behind it, right? So now that's the social sciences behind it, but then also the genius of the marketing. Right. Let me put them in a uniform, because when you wear a uniform, you feel a part of something.
Yep, you feel a part of something. Absolutely.
So because the part goes back to that social order, because that's how we was designed. God made us that way. You can't change it. Yeah. Right? Now there are significant events that happen in our life that does change it. Right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs references that, right? Yeah. So people go through traumas and then now they're cut off from emotional connections. They're emotionally immature. Right. That doesn't make them less social. You still know they social because you see how they so emotionally immature people they're not sitting here isolating. Right. They still going out. They just doing emotional damage while they doing it.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah.
So it's crazy how they manipulate it, but it's also, once you learn it, you realize like we are very simple as people. Like we're not complex like we thought.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very easy to pull our levers. So. And
I think this is a very important conversation because we always talk about the father not being in the house, but we don't talk about what happened for that father to be in the house. Right. And then how do we fix that? Like I'm a solution problem. Like, all right, we know the problem is here, like lack of active fathers or but in order to get the solution, you got to know the root of the problem.
I think we need to fix it by figuring out a way for our society, our Black society, right? Because I'm talking about our problems, right? We need to mirror the social structure of the 1960s back.
Okay.
Right? So humans have existed throughout history, right, on large scales with a concept of community.
Absolutely.
The Indians, the Iroquois, they had the concept that we have that the Confederacy came from. They stole it from the Confederacy of Indian tribes. Right. Right.
Yeah.
The Constitution that we have today, I forget the philosopher's name that talked about it. Right. But that spoke about coming from the concept of a unity through Rome and all of that. But it also still incorporated Montesquieu, I think his name was.
I think so.
It was Montesquieu. Yeah. So, but anyway. So I think we need to mirror that, right? So the 1960s is the best one because we talking about now, we know what life looks like industrialized, right? So we go back too far and we in farmland, rural, and then we can't do that, right? But so in the 1960s, we had booming cities. We had New York City was a finance capital. We had infrastructure. We had subways. We had connectivity, right? But what we still had was and this is the key thing, right? We had strong family units, right? Absolutely. So we need to work on building back towards strong family units. Let's stop dating and marrying just for emotions and love, and let's start making real life wise decisions, right?
Whoa, because
let's stop dating just for emotions and love, and let's start making real life wise decisions, right? Partners, right? Yeah. Is this a good fit for me long term? Are you going to complement me? Are we going to be able to work together and build out a family structure, right? That's the core unit, the foundational unit. But then also, once we start working on building that family structure and we got it, then it needs to grow. So that family needs to grow into a community, right? And in an organized community, we got to unite just like every other community does behind some kind of common goal. Maybe it might be because I'm a Chinese individual, or maybe I'm a Korean individual and I'm living in Koreatown, or maybe I'm a Latina individual and I'm living in the area where everybody is Spanish speaking, or maybe I'm an East Indian individual, right? They all live amongst themselves because they share a common goal, right? They have clearly defined boundaries because they understand power brokering. Right? You got to have your own clear defined boundaries with people with a common goal. That's a foundation for organization. And it's an extenuance of a family structure.
Yeah, right.
When we had that in the 1960s, that's how you see a king stand there interlocked, right? Arm to arm with a bunch of men in black suits moving on one accord, thinking together. The Bible say when two or more are gathered, I'm in the presence.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how you get a Malcolm X, where he can have a bunch of men in the community lined up, moving on one accord. And now you doing things like getting brothers out of prison during the Jim Crow era, right? Pissing off the chief of police because he mad that one man got all that power.
Absolutely,
how do we achieve that? Building a strong family structure, and then building that extension of that family structure back into the community structure. Because it was our unity that was our strength and is our strength.
It is,
right?
Yeah.
And that's the way that we've survived since the beginning of time, right? The hunter-gatherers began to make significant progress when they came together as opposed to being scattered.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
They came together, they started creating communities to live and survive, to be able to fight off the wildlife, to be able to tend to the young. And then now these villages started growing. And that was so the game changer was fire, right? But in addition to experiencing and understanding fire, fast forward, realizing the power of your community and building together. Let's stop being scattered in these caves, onesies and twosies, and let's collectively unite together and build this up because we stronger together. And that's gonna always be true because that's coded in our DNA. Yeah. Right? Ain't nothing more powerful than a group of people thinking together. There's nothing more powerful than that.
Yeah. That thing right there, that is basically the blueprint right there. That is like really, because I think about like what's done when we're unified. Like, even when we think about the whole Black Lives Matter, like whatever was going on with that, but they were unified, right?
Right. And we were able to get something done as superficial as it was, but I think that was only as a result of because we just had the wrong goals on paper. Yeah. Right. We just wanted change instead of what change.
What change? Right? Yeah.
Because change brought.
Yeah.
And we got exactly what we asked for.
Yeah.
Right. I haven't seen what is it? The Confederate. I ain't seen the Confederate statue since.
Yeah, I know.
But the reality is, I ain't give a damn about them Confederate statues. Change that operational statute that's affecting my real life.
Yeah, change.
Right, do that one.
Change the system.
Pass an anti-hate law act that's gonna protect people like me. Right. We got an Asian hate bill. Respect. Right. We got we don't got a bill, but European hate bills are already written in. Yeah. Right, LGBT got protections. Yeah. Right, where the African American, where the black protections at? Right, so knocking down them Confederate statues was cool. Yeah, right, and it's a testament of what we could do when we work together. But let's be strategic too. Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
Not just say I want to change. What kind of change? You got to. I'm a strong believer. Write the vision, make it plain, so those who read it can run with it. Right. So if I'm not writing and if I'm not making plain of what I want, if it's not focused, who's going to read it and how can you run? Because now you're running like a renegade. You don't kind of know. You just like I want to change. Right. So, but that's just so proven that when we stick together, how things can change. And if I like what you said about the concept of the way to get this where we need it to be is back up and build the family structure. Rebuild the family. Build back better. That's build back better right there.
Build back better, yeah.
The family structure.
And we do that. Once we got a community, then we can start creating businesses that meets our community needs, right? So now that's enterprising. That's keeping the dollar in the black community and that are our defined boundaries, right? The blueprint already there. We just don't know it because we won't be reading. Right. And we miseducated, right? Because this stuff I'm telling you right now, I promise you, I ain't learned this at the high.
I ain't learned this at the high either. Yeah. Listen, when I went to college and I started taking African American history, I was like, wait a minute,
like, what?
They did what? How? I didn't even know. For real.
You know what the sad truth is? I was 13, 14 before I actually connected that Black history dates back to the beginning of time. And even then, I didn't fully understand it. I didn't fully understand it with tangible facts that I could spit at you to make sense, right? I didn't get that until I was 30, right? But just the basic connection that our Black history didn't start in slavery.
In slavery, yeah.
Right? That didn't come in. I was a teenager, right? The epitome of miseducation is crazy.
The craziest thing, I remember even going to school, and it wasn't until I was in Pulaski, middle school, Roots came out. I'm dating myself from 44. Right. Roots came out. That's when I actually knew anything about Black history.
Right.
But it was through Roots. It wasn't through everything else that happened before Roots. It was literally through Roots. And then what they tried to convince us is that, almost like, there was two ways that they were trying to teach us Roots. One was that the white people, European white people, came and stole us from the land, right? And then the other part was that we sold our own people, you know. So it was kind of like you mad at white people, but you mad at ourselves too. Like it was like so much miseducation and reward that it wasn't. I'm telling you, when I was in my 40s in college, and I'm like reading African American history, and I'm like, whoa! Now I'm teaching my kids this, and they're like, well, I need to take African American studies because everything I learned in school doesn't seem like it was right, but it was intentional.
It was. Imagine if I understood the Mali Empire when I was a young boy, if I knew anything about Mansa Musa, right? My dreams could have been so different, right? But I was intentionally put in a box, right?
Yeah.
But so now, as a father, I make it my business to make sure that those boundaries and those hurdles that was thrown in my path, I'm blazing through it. I'm clearing it out, right? Yeah. But also at the same time, I'm not fit to give it to my children, right? I got a structure in place that they're learning all different kind of things. And in testament to their mother, like I love our co-parenting relationship. Like we work so well together, right?
That's good.
So we balance because she an emotional guru, right? I don't have that.
Right.
So now that we could communicate a lot better, like she's able to check me on that, offer sound advice on how my approach could be when I'm interacting with them and different things, right? And then the same is true. Like it's a real reciprocity. So even though we're not together, we are absolutely raising our children together.
Right. That's the power of co-parenting. I think you said something important, and I think I want to touch on that of how to co-parent effectively. Yeah. Like, because that's a challenge right now. That is what's out there, you know, and that's what not only like the family is not together, but then we can't even communicate for the sake of the child. Right. Like that's a lot of people that I talk to in coaching. And I experienced it with my own self, but I was determined it's about the kids. I don't care about your little attitude, none of that.
I got a rule that's going to take care of probably about 70% of any co-parenting issues that most people have. Yeah. And by the time I get to the second one, it's going to move it to like 90% of it. Right. Rule number 1, stop having sex if y'all not together.
Okay. That's right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
All of the perpetual issues, I'm mad at you, all of that, right? You ain't never going to be able to heal past that and refocus on your child if you keeping yourself in this trauma cycle because you keep on reopening that wound of that relationship that you know ain't working. Right. Right. So you keep getting mad and then now it's your anger driving the bus instead of your reality driving the bus.
Right. Okay. Right?
So stop.
Yeah, stop having. Okay, yeah. You done.
You're done. Like co-parent, draw boundaries and respect it. Right? Second thing, heal from your traumas that you caused each other. Communicate it, right? Because there's gonna be an unspoken elephant that's gonna cause y'all hindrance. Like it's gonna hinder you if you don't discuss and take accountability. At least one part of it, but one person got to do it, right? Got to clear that air. You got to be adults about it, right? Whatever occurred when y'all was in y'all's relationship can't carry on into the children rearing process. And the only way to make sure that it don't is if you set up them boundaries, right? Otherwise, you're going to keep on keeping yourself in that cycle where now the focus is going to be y'all's relationship and the parenting is going to be the back seat. Because you can't tell yourself to separate from yourself emotionally when you trigger. You can't. It don't work. That's not the way the amygdala works.
You trigger. You trigger.
Yeah, you in the amygdala override. Like it's running the bus now until you can come down. And I feel like
a lot of people are living in a cycle like that with them relationships because you're going on this ebb and flow. When y'all cool, everything good, and then y'all beefing, and then now your parenting drops, and then you're doing this thing. You can be a lot more consistent if you control yourself first. So stop humping. Right?
Simple. Stop doing it.
Yeah. And then address your traumas.
Address it.
Right? Like, stop trying to act like it didn't happen because you can't. It happened for real.
Yeah.
It happens. So if y'all don't address it and be accountable, and you don't gotta ever agree on it, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying agree on it. I'm not saying become perfected. I'm not saying forget about it. I'm saying address it.
Right.
Because once you address it, the sting lessens. Right? So now if something goes wrong, I could think clear-headed instead of thinking from the lens of my anger and my trauma. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like that'll take care of the vast majority of the stuff we have. Because then from there, now that you got clear lines of communication, Lil Drewski has such and such going on. Now you can give your opinion without it gonna be some backlash because it's an emotional trigger. She can give her opinion without being some backlash and an emotional trigger. And then now that all of the information is on the page, y'all gathered together, focused on the same concept.
Right.
Now y'all can make real life collective decisions that's gonna affect your children the proper way.
Right. Yeah.
Instead of it just happening in between while y'all battling. The best way you know how from a individual perspective, because we're not designed like that.
We're not designed like that. We're designed for community.
Right. Right. So we need both.
Powerful. Yeah.
The decisions of the child need to come from a collective of the mother and the father. If the mother making all the decisions, it's going to be a problem. If the father making all of the decisions, it's going to be a problem. Neither one of us individually can attain what we needed to attain. Right. But when we work together, we make a whole child, right? Frederick Douglass said, it's far better to build strong children than to repair broken men. And that's like the philosophy of how I take my approach in raising my children.
Yo, that's good. My bishop said something like, we were on Bible study, we were talking about that. And that's pretty much what he quoted too. Like, it really is. I mean, trying to repair a broken man, like you guys get through so many layers, even broken women, like try to repair a broken adult in general.
Right. So I think that Douglas was referring to humanity.
Yeah. Because, you know, and I tell people, like, even though, all right, we're not responsible how we were raised, right? I can't control how I was raised. I was a kid, right? But I have control of how I raised myself again, how I trained myself, how I built myself to be better than what I feel was me being fumbled, right? Like I can't, you know, have the excuse of this is all I know, this is where I came from, if I'm not even trying to pursue better. Right. You know? So I think I'm loving this whole concept because now I have a different perspective about really what it takes to build the family, build the community and repair these homes. It's really bringing back the structure of family. Right. And even if you're not in the same household, we're still family. Right. We're co-parenting. We're in there for our child, so it's still family. And family, it extends beyond just the household. Right. It goes. It has to. Yeah. Right. Wow.
And as that happens, we will align. Right. We got to unite behind our common value. Right. Whatever that may be. Right. What I think the low-hanging fruit is for most of us, our skin color. Right. And then never mind the fact that we all come from a very much cultural background. Right. So just like everybody else, let's use that to our advantage. And then let's start working together to make life better for people who come from our cultural background. Yeah. Right. Like everybody else. Right.
And then I think also valuing each culture, though, like, you know, because I think about like when somebody hears, oh, we need to do this for our people, they think that it's backwards racism, right?
It's not.
But it's not.
My love of my people is not a hate of other people.
Yes.
Right.
And I think
don't mistake that.
That's the common mistake. Yeah. But understanding the value that each culture brings to each other. Like I love going into Chinatown, like to get some stuff. I love.
Just was there with my kids a few weeks ago.
You know what I mean? I like because introducing our children to other cultures is so important because that's what makes the world go around.
Absolutely.
But understanding that we have to build ourselves, and because other cultures want to come in and buy from us too. We have trade.
Absolutely. And that's the way to grow trade. Yeah. But right now, what is our trade? Right? What does our people do? Yeah. Right? And we got a lot of markets that we can own and control tomorrow, really, if we got it together. If we all collectively start working together and said that, all right, we're going to collectively own the black hair product industry. We will no longer support any other brands, but A, B, C, and D. And then now we move all of our preferred stock. Like we start beginning to invest in these companies. Right. And then we put out messaging that we're going to use it. Right. We one of the largest consumers of our hair care products. Right. Why is it that other ethnicities sell it to us? That's backwards. Right. That's low hanging fruit. You know how easy it is to just be like, all right, I'm going to support Grow and Flow now instead of, I don't know, Carol's daughter. Right. I don't even know Carol. That might be black owned though. That was a bad example. Carol's daughter's
black owned. Sorry, Carol.
Well, but you get the concept.
But
though.
no,
like we need to start learning and controlling the industry. There are some other things that are marketed
as black people, and it's really had nothing to do with black people. So I get what you're saying, because when you go into some of these hair stores, then there's a lot of things with black faces on that has nothing to do with black. So educating yourself of what actually is ours and support who's ours, because sometimes we're supporting people that we think that it's ours, but it's not. For sure. I learned that quickly.
Right. And if we start doing that and thinking in terms of that on the community, now we can start making decisions like, all right, we know Chester is zoned for industrial. So now we collectively work together because we want to begin to position ourselves to take over this hair care industry. And now we together, and we got a couple companies. We almost done. Yeah, we got a couple companies. Now we support these companies. We done made some return on our investment, right? Now we can start saying like, all right, let's build a manufacturing warehouse here. So now we got 6 or 7 different brands, right? And now we want to vertically integrate. We don't just want to retail. We want to own the manufacturing of it as well, right? And we already set up. And if we already moving in the collective, how hard would it be to buy one of these low-cost properties just like everybody else, right? Fit it for manufacturing and do specifically what we needed to do, right? And then now we vertically integrate that business. Now we on the next step, right? And then what could we do for the next thing after that? And it all starts with just working together. Right? Extending the family so that we can start seeing what we have that can make our communities run and then control that production, that gross domestic product. That's the real economics of it. And it ain't even hard. We just don't know it.
Right. And we just got to support each other. Once we get the knowledge and understanding, we just got to be able to support each other.
Right.
Right, wow. I'm excited. This conversation was hot. We're going to have a part 2 because this was really good, because it went beyond, like, you know, when I think about focus on Father's Day and the month for fathers, the important role of it. But you literally just broke down the important role of a father and what it looks like and how it impacts the household, the community, society as a whole. Yeah. Because it's not just a one, like just for me and mine. This is how do I raise children that we now go extend behind, because we're all family. Right. How do we unite on one front for the better, so we can better help each other? Right. And that I didn't see that coming tonight. I didn't see that conversation coming. I honestly did not. I really was wow. So again, I'm open to more conversations like that, because I didn't think about it like that. And again, I think part of it also is because I'm a woman, so I'm not thinking from the perspective of a man. You know, and your perspective of a man is to provide, protect, and to make things happen, like the structural thing. So what you were talking tonight was structural. And then as a woman, our job is to, you know, to dress it up, to make it together. Yeah. But the foundation
like
the the foundation which you brought tonight was just amazing. So I thank you so much, because I think that I know it opened my eyes, and I know it opened other people's eyes, and just giving a different perspective of the role of a father, that is just not no minute role, minuscule role. It's such a powerful and authoritative role. Wow. So I'm open. So thank you so much for coming to the show.
It's been a great conversation.
Yeah. And we're definitely going to have part 2. Thank you for helping me. Trying to release my daughter to the Marines and be okay with that. Thank you guys for joining Parenting with a Purpose. I am your host, Donna Janel. Our guest here was Andrew Nelson. And I know you guys got a lot out of this, because I got a lot. So make sure you comment, share it with people, and just keep following Parenting with a Purpose. We're up to some good things. All right. Thanks for joining in.